Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and today I'm going to be coding and deploying a really nice application that you can put in your portfolio if you're interested in doing that. And the application will be consisting of a website where you can log in. It will utilize one of the most sophisticated movie APIs out there, which is free, by the way, and I'll have the link for it in the description. And you will be able to see a list of a bunch of movies that are really popular in the moment. You'll be able to see information about those movies, and not only that, but also be able to rate them and have those ratings affect the movie ratings in real life. Then you'll be able to also interact with the movie and see all the movies you've rated before. It is a really nice website, and I think the tech stack chosen for this video is really useful because it follows all the standards that I know to be true and useful in the industry, and I'm going to be showing you guys every step along the way. So before we get into the video, I want to give a little bit of a demo to what we're building so that you guys can also decide now if you guys want to build this or not, right? So what we have over here is the application when you have it logged in. We're going to be using a guest login, which all it consists of is basically just clicking on logging in, and it will log us into the application, as you can see. So when we click login, it actually creates a session for us. And as I refresh the page, you'll see I'm still logged in, right? If I want to log out, I'll click over here. But basically what this project consists of is we can see that on the home page, we have here a really nice UI displaying a bunch of popular movies in the moment. So if you're in the future, those movies are probably not popular by the time you're watching this, but as of right now, these are the most popular movies that are out there right now. And not only that, but you can also click on TV shows and see all the TV shows that are popular in the moment. For each of them, you can see information about it, such as like the release date, their current rating, also a brief description of them, and you can actually click on the movie and see more information. You can see their IMDb ID, you can see their genres, you can see their budget, you can see a bunch of stuff about them. Obviously, this project will be fully customizable for all of you guys because you probably don't want to just copy exactly what I built. You probably want to manipulate it a bit so that you make it the way you want it to be. So this is what I find interesting about this project as a whole. But you can do the same thing with TV shows, as you can see. And TV shows is actually a little bit different. You have like a list of the seasons and how many episodes each of the seasons have. So I can just click here. This one actually, it's a movie. Let me click on a TV show. I don't know, I'll click on this. Some of the TV shows, to be honest, I've never heard of in my life. Like, look at this. This has like over 200 seasons, which is crazy. But yeah, I like the UI of this. We've been using semantic UI for everything. And you can also, one of the coolest parts is you can actually rate a movie. So we have here Mission Impossible. If I want to give a movie a rating of 8, I'll put 8 and I'll click rate. And you should see that the rating was successful. How do we check if it was successful? Well, we go to the rated page and it shows both TV shows and movies that we've rated. And right now we only have the Mission Impossible as the movie, but we can actually rate Five Nights at Freddy's with a 7. And let me rate also a TV show here so you guys can see. I'll rate Loki as a 9. And we can see that now they appear in this list as well. And this isn't locally. This is actually using the API that we're going to be presenting in this video. Also, at the end of the video, we're going to be deploying all of this using one of the best platforms out there for hosting, also known as Hostinger. I've used them a bunch of times by now, and you guys probably heard of me talking about them because I really like their service. And in the end of the video, I'll show you guys exactly what you guys can do to deploy this application and take advantage of their really nice promotion for Black Friday. So with that in mind, before we get into the video, if you could leave a like and subscribe, I would massively appreciate it. And let's get into the tutorial. Okay everyone, so before we actually start writing code, I want to set up our environment so that later on when we deploy our application, we already have everything done and we can just really quickly deploy it. So in this video, we're going to be using Hostinger as a platform to deploy our application. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, you know how much I enjoy Hostinger. I have countless projects deployed at there because I really like the service that they provide, and especially now with the new features that they've added to the platform, I believe it is, without a doubt, one of the most complete services out there for deploying any application. As you can see over here, whenever you create an account and purchase one of their premium plans, you get a lot of things together with just deploying your website. They gave you a completely free domain, which I've shown to you guys, and I will be showing in this video. We're gonna actually get a domain for this. They also give you free website migration, and they have a really good customer support. And they're also currently running a really good Black Friday deal where, depending on when you're watching this video, the price might be a little bit different. But as you can see, as of right now, it is costing only $2.49 per month plus an additional 2 months free to actually get all of the features that I'm going to be showing to you guys in this video. But the craziest thing is that between the days of November 20th and December 3rd, this price will actually get even cheaper to $1.99 per month. And the deals are not just for the premium plans, which this one is in reference to. It's also for the business plan, which is actually going to be between the October 30th and December 3rd as well. It's going to be around $3.49 per month. Now, in this video, we're going to actually be using the premium plan. And in order to actually do that, you can see they have a bunch of the different hosting plans that you can actually work with. But the one that I want to work with is this one over here, the premium plan. You can obviously look, but I just wanted to specifically notify those things. One thing that the premium plan doesn't have that the business plan has is the fact that on the business plan, it actually comes with a completely free CDN. And for those who don't know, CDN basically stands for Content Delivery Network. You can actually use a CDN to enhance your website's performance by up to 40%, since it will basically geographically distribute the network of proxy servers so that it will load your website depending on which location you're in, and thus ensuring that your website has high availability, performance, and resilience against things like DDoS attacks and such. So it is a really good thing to have. And we actually also have, Hostinger was really nice to set us up with a business plan as well. Not only that, but I believe recently, as you can see over here, I even searched for the premium, for the business and the cloud startup plans. They provide you with 200 gigabytes of NVMe storage, which for those who don't know, utilizing a server that uses only NVMe technology, which basically stands for Non-Volatile Memory Express, you will see significant improves in the website's operational performance. So it basically will just help the performance of your website. So that's why I think also the business plan might actually surpass the premium one if you are interested in using something like this. And one final thing I see here that is actually kind of interesting is, depending on which plan you get, especially with the premium and the cloud startup one, you actually get daily backups, which is crazy. As you can see, this even has a value of $25. So by just spending like $1 more a month, you can get $25 back in value. And I honestly think that this can help you a lot. You can see that it will basically protect your website. And it seems like, at least in this case, daily backups are stored for 7 days and weekly backups are stored for 7 weeks. So I'm actually just going to show you guys really quick how you would do this. You would click add to cart to whichever plan you're interested in. Then you would come to this page. You would again choose the period in which you want this plan for. You can actually just have it for 1 month. You can have it for 12 months, 24 months. The price you saw in the beginning is for 48 months, because if you're going to deploy a website and you believe that your website will be up for 2 years, for example, you can save a lot of money by getting the 2-year plan first, obviously. So with this kind of stuff, I would say not to cheap out, because unless you're 100% certain you're not going to deploy this website, I would say to stick with the 48-month plan, because you actually save money on the long run. So then what you have to do is log in with your account. I already have mine, so I'm going to click on Google and just log in. Okay, as you can see, I just logged in, and we can see here we can choose a bunch of different types of payments. We have all of our discounts right over here, which is pretty good. We can choose PayPal, we can choose Google Pay. They even have Alipay and CoinGate, which is really, really nice. But by the way, this info here is not actual info for me, but you would come here and put your address, your city, whatever, everything that you need, you get the 75% off, which saves us $500, which is crazy. And the total would end up being just $179 for 2 years of free hosting, which is really nice. But if you want to save even more, you can come over here and just put the code PedroTech and click apply. And you'll see that not only you get all of the discounts I just told you, but you get also an additional discount with my code. So don't forget to put this when you're actually purchasing. Then obviously you put the information for your card or whatever payment processing or whatever payment provider you choose, and then click on submit secure payment. And that's basically how you purchase your plan. And after you're done purchasing your plan, you're gonna see that you have access now to the H panel of Hostinger. Now I have this over here. I have one free business hosting and one premium web hosting. But for now, we're gonna leave them for the end of the videos where I show you guys how to set up and actually deploy. All we're gonna do now is actually just claim our free domain. So to do that, you can actually just click on claim domain. This should be here if you purchased a plan that gives you a domain. And you can just put the domain name. I'm also going to choose .com because I think websites with .com tend to have an added value of trust because it is the most commonly used domain extensions out there. But the name of this website will be something, I'll just call it PedroTech Movies. Something like that. Obviously, this is a fake website that I'm creating, but I would recommend choosing your domain name better than what I'm doing because it is the domain name that you're going to be using later on. I'm going to check for availability. Obviously, I doubt there's a website with this name. So you see, we get it for free. We can just claim the domain. And just like that, we finished the domain registration. We just click on this button. And as you can see, after this is complete, we'll have everything done. And so it is done. So I'm just going to click continue and we'll actually start writing the code for our video. Okay, everyone. Now let's start writing the code for this video. So like I said, we're going to be using the following tech stack. We're going to be creating our app using Vite, first of all. Then for UI, we're going to be using a really interesting library called Semantic UI. Now, again, you don't have to follow the UI that I'm going to be making in this video. Usually, I don't even include UI in my video because I don't like doing that. The focus is the functionality. However, I like Semantic UI, especially for projects like this where it isn't a very advanced project, but it's also not a very beginner project. And I think that it adds a lot to the project. So if you want to follow along and also install Semantic UI, feel free to do so. But if you don't, you will still be able to follow the video. Now we're also going to be fetching data by using React Query, which is one of the best providers out there. And obviously as a language, we're going to be using Typescript. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the tech stack we're going to be using. So let's start off by just creating our app. I'm going to be using Yarn, but you can use NPM if you want to. To create a Vite app, I just say yarn create Vite. And as you can see, it will ask us some questions. I'm going to create the app right inside of this directory. So I'll put a dot, press enter. And I also want to choose React because obviously we're building a project in React. Then there's a couple options over here. I'm not going to be using SWC. I'm going to be using just TypeScript. So that's pretty much it. It created all the files. However, it hasn't installed any of the necessary stuff that we need for this project. To do that, I need to run yarn. Now that that's done, let's run yarn dev. And oh, I wrote it wrong. So yarn dev. And hopefully, as you can see, it should open on the port 5173. We press enter, and this is the app that we have. It's a simple boilerplate page that comes when you run the command that we have. So what we do now is we want to kind of structure our project. So I want to, first of all, delete the assets folder because we're not going to be using it. Then I also want to create a couple more folders. I want to create the components folder that will be used for any components that we need to create that will be shared between multiple other components and pages. Then we want to create the pages folder, which will contain all the different pages we have in our application. And then inside of the pages folder, we will create a couple different pages that we're going to have in our app. For example, we're going to have the auth page where we're going to be able to log in to the app. we're also going to have the home page, which we obviously will just display the movies and the TV shows that we can rate. And then we're also going to have a page called rated, because if you recall in the demo, we have a page which displays all the movies we've previously rated, right? So those are primarily the pages that we want. We can make any changes later if necessary. Now, over here in our app.tsx, we want to clean this up a bit because it obviously includes a bunch of logic that comes with the boilerplate code. So I want to delete all of this, save it, delete all of this imports as well, and just save it like this. Now, obviously, this means that it's completely empty, but that's completely fine. I also want to make some changes to the initial CSS. The reason for that is because as we progress, I don't want that CSS to affect the UI of how we want things to look. So I'm going to make some changes. Firstly, on the index.css file, I want to delete everything over here that isn't the styling added to the root. And in the styling, I want to delete the background color. So now it will look like this, but it will obviously change in a second. So then we want to come to our app.css, and we also want to delete some of the stuff that is initially here. For example, I didn't want to delete everything below the root because, again, that was all part of the boilerplate code that we don't actually need. So as you can see over here, again, continue looking exactly the same. So there wasn't a lot that we saw right now. However, it would have affected as we progressed. Now, let's start installing some of the stuff that we need in this project. So I'll open up a new terminal over here and we'll run the following command. I want to install, first of all, the React Router DOM package, which will allow us to create routes in our application and navigate through them. Then we also want to install semantic UI React, which will be used to obviously create the UI for our project. And then I want to install the package @10stack/React query, which will be used to fetch data. So I'll press enter and all of this should be installed. And in order to start our project, we're actually going to start by just setting up all of the stuff related to React Router DOM. So that means that up here in our project, in our app.tsx, which is almost the root of our app, we're going to have to import some stuff from React Router DOM. So like this. What we're going to install is first, we want to import the browser router and call it router. This will be a component that will basically allow us to determine that we have routes in our application. Then we need a component called routes, which will signal React Router DOM where our route definitions will be. And then we need our route component to create said route definition. It will become clearer, and if you've never worked with React Router DOM, I would recommend brushing it through a project before this because it is a very basic concept in React, and I have a bunch of videos on it already, but I will also explain it in this video. The main thing I want to do here is I want to first create a div, which will serve as the div encompassing our whole app. And then inside of here, we'll first tell React that we need a router in this app. We need some routes in this app. And then inside of this thing, we'll put the routes component to determine that inside of this, we'll have routes definitions. And we'll start with the most basic route definition, which will be a route, and we'll put the path, which is an empty slash, meaning it's home. And we will determine an element, which is equal to the simple h1 tag over here. Now, what does this mean? Well, if we go into our project, this will basically mean that if you are in the route equal to an empty slash, which is the entry point of your URL, you will display whatever component or whatever JSX you put inside of the element portion. So if I went to something else like, I don't know, rated, you'll see that it doesn't show that anymore because it doesn't match the correct URL. So we'll do the same thing for all the other routes we need. We need one for auth, we need one for rated, and this will obviously serve as a home one. So for now, we'll keep it like that. So for auth, we'll change the path to auth, and for rated, we'll change the path to rated. Here for now, we'll just write auth, And here for now, we'll just write rated page. Obviously here, we don't have any way to navigate through the pages. So we'll start by creating our first component, which will be our navbar. So over here, I'll create a navbar.tsx file. And simply, I'll create the component by saying const navbar equals to this definition of component, and we'll just export it over here at the top. Now, we want to start using some of that semantic UI stuff I mentioned to you guys in the beginning. Now, semantic UI allows us to have something similar to material UI, where we're able to have pre-made components that allow us to just use their components and not have to actually write our styling. That's pretty good for projects like this, where we really don't care if our styling looks very similar to other projects using semantic UI, but at the same time, we want to generate a good looking website quickly. So to use semantic UI, we've installed it already, but we actually want to come to the root entry of our application, which is the main.tsx file. And over here, we want to import the following CSS file. We'll import semantic UI React, semantic UI CSS / semantic min.css, just like this. And you'll see that here it says that there's an error, and it's because when we installed semantic UI, we actually had to install semantic UI CSS as well. I just forgot to do that. So we'll just say yarn add semantic UI CSS, and you'll see that if I save this and refresh this, it should work. Now let's go to our navbar, and over here we will start implementing it. So the first thing I want in this navbar is I want to use the menu component from semantic UI React. And the menu component is really cool. Look what it will do. It basically allows us to just set up kind of a cool looking navbar in our app. Literally, I'll just put here return menu. And we want this navbar to be fixed at the top. So we can just put a prop called fixed and say top. And we also want it to be very big. So I'm going to say size equals to huge. I like how semantic UI is very like literal with how you determine your styling. But then inside of here, we're going to basically set up the links. So inside of this menu, we'll have a menu, another menu, right? And inside of this other menu, we're going to put two links. And the reason why we're creating this menu inside of another menu is because I want in our navbar to have two links on the left, and I have the auth link at the right. So I need to separate them. And styling wise, this is how you would do it. You would come over here and put that the position of this is at the right, because you can only put positioning on this component. And then inside of here, we'll put an item or a menu.item, which will contain the link text called auth, and it will have the following properties. We want to first say that this menu item will act as if it is a React.DOM link. So if you've ever used React.DOM, you know that you can navigate throughout pages by using a link. And a link is like an A tag, like any URL link that you can click and go to a page, but it is built by React.DOM, and it follows the functionality just like React.DOM wants you to. So if I say that this should act like a link, it knows that when you click on it, it should bring you to the following page. And it will import all of the props that this component requires, so that you can also use it in the menu.item. So one of the props that a React.DOM link has is the to property, which you can just determine where you want to go if you click on this link. So I'm going to say I want to go to the auth page if you click on this. Now we can't see it right now because I actually haven't imported this into our page, but I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to come over here at the top and import from /components/navbar, and I want to import the navbar. Now we want to put this navbar in a place such that it is inside of this router, because it uses a link to navigate. So it has any components that uses React.DOM components needs to be inside of this router. So we need to put it inside of the router, but above the routes, because it can't be inside of the routes because it's not a route. So we'll put it right over here. And we'll save this, and you should see kind of the structure of it already. And you see that the auth button is over here. And if I click on it, it will bring us to the auth page, and the auth page shows the auth text. So it's looking pretty good, but we haven't added the other links yet. So in our navbar over here, I also want to change some stuff, like change the styling a bit of this link. The only thing I want to do really is just give it a font size to it. So I'll say style and give a font size of 1.5 rem. So 1.5 rem. And I want it to look similar to this. It's a little bit bigger than what it was before, and I like it more like this. So now what I want to do is I want to create the other two links. So to do that, we'll get out of the inner menu and we'll actually put the other menu items outside of it. So we say menu item, and we'll put the first one, which will be the home page. And obviously it will contain all of the same props as this one over here, but obviously this will change to just an empty slash to go to the home page. And we'll do the exact same thing with the rated. We'll say rated, and we'll put here the rated page. And you should see that now what we have is, looks weird because it looks like all of them are in the right, but they will be to the left. The reason why they're currently to the right is because I should actually put this two before this one so that they're not pushed, as you can see. So the auth is to the right because it's actually after, but these two are to the left because they're before. This menu pushes all of the elements to the right. So we have our cool looking navbar right here. And I can navigate through all of the components, as you can see, by just clicking on the links. So it's already looking kind of nice, but what are we supposed to do? Well, we're going to be using an API, like I said, and this API is really, really cool. And the API I'm talking about is called themoviedatabase.org. Now, I'm not sponsored by this API. Like you know, this video is sponsored actually by Hostinger. And this API is just one that I found online, and I tried it out and I actually really enjoyed it. Again, it's completely free. I'm sure you can pay to maybe get a lot more requests, but as far as I've worked with it, it hasn't been paid at all. And I think they have a really good pricing system. You can check them out. I'll obviously put the link in the description. But this API is really cool because it allows you to see a lot of data. As you can see over here in the documentation, there's a lot that you can actually get. There's a lot of endpoints, and they have really cool explanations to all of them. So even if you build a project like I'm building exactly step by step, you can add more stuff and more features as you progress, because you'll have the option to, and you can actually make your project a little bit more complicated and more complex, which is really cool. Now, the way we do this is I want you to create an account with this, and I want you to request. So what I want you to do is I want you to create an account with this. I'm going to show you kind of how to create that account and the steps you need to take. But obviously I already have an account, so I don't have to do that. But follow as I show you. I want you to go to the sign up part, and I want you to put different usernames. I'm going to create a fake one here, right? Put a password, then put another password, and then put your email. Now, when you create your account, it's going to obviously verify through your email. So I recommend you doing so. And when you're done activating your account, you can just log in with the password that you created. So I'll put here the password for this new account that I just created, and you should go into this page. Now, in order to be able to get your API key that you're going to be using in this project, you need to click on more and then go to API. Here, you'll see that it will ask what kind of API key we want to register for. Obviously, we are a developer. We're not a professional company. So we'll click on developer. It will ask us to read the terms of use, read it if you're interested, and then click accept. Then you need to kind of give a brief explanation of what your project is. It's really quick. I'm just going to put here website. I'll give it a name, cool project. It doesn't have to be a real URL. So I'm going to put not applicable. This is a personal project I am working on to just test the API. Then you put your name, your last name, your phone number, and all of this stuff. And when you click submit, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get your API key, and you're gonna get your API read access token. So you need this information, and I recommend you to save this information somewhere safe. I already have it, like I said, from my other account, so I'm not gonna be using this one, but please keep this in somewhere safe because we're actually gonna be using it in our code. Now that you're done creating your account, we can actually start using the API. So what we wanna do is we wanna start our app by just allowing the user to log into an account. And in this API, you can actually create accounts using usernames and passwords and all that stuff, but you can also log in as a guest session. And a guest session allows you to do less stuff, but it's a lot easier to set up because you don't need to ask a user for a password and a username. So I thought it would be more fit for this video. But if you wanna authenticate using the other methods, you can do so as well. So to do this, I'm gonna create an index.tsx file in our auth folder. Every single component or page that we're gonna create inside of a folder will be called index.tsx, but the name of the file of the folder will be what we will use to recognize what this component is about. If you've never seen this style of organization, I've used it in a bunch of my videos and I've used it in a bunch of different companies as well. It's a really nice style in my opinion. You just come here and every single folder, you create a file called index because then you can just organize it in a simple way and you use the name of the folder as the identifier. But let's start with the auth, right? Because that's the one we're working on. So here I'll say export const auth and create the component. Inside of this component, we want to add some styling to it. Now we'll import here at the top from semantic UI. We'll import the following things. We'll import from semantic UI React. And the components we want to import is, first of all, a grid, then a header, then a form, then a segment, and then a button. Now, you obviously don't know what any of them are if you've never used semantic UI, but I'll explain it right now. So I'm going to return the following UI. First, we'll return a grid, and a grid will allow us to have some sort of structure to our project. So this is actually the props I want to put to this grid. I want to align all the text to the center, and I want to align this vertically in the middle of our page so that we can actually just have it right in the middle like you saw in the demo. And the style, I want to actually make it 100 VH. VH is just the vertical height of the browser or your computer. So we just wanted to make it full screen and center it directly in the middle. Then we're going to close this grid and we're going to add a column to this grid. We're going to say grid.column and we'll add a max width of 450 so that it's not that big. It's right in the middle and it has a kind of like a box for us to log in. Inside of this grid column, we'll add the header, which is just like a normal header tag in normal HTML. We can actually specify how we want this header to look like, especially size-wise. I want it to be kind of like an H2 tag, so I'm going to say I want this to be as an H2 tag. We can give a color to it, and I want the color to be violet because it's a cool color that Semantic UI has. You should look, by the way, if you want to change the color, all the colors that they have, and you can check that out by clicking on this and clicking on Semantic Colors and checking all the options, but that's beyond the point. Then we want to align this text in the middle. So we're going to say text align center. And over here, we're going to say something like, welcome, login by registering as a guest below. Like this. And we should see that this is what appears, but it isn't. And now the reason why it isn't is because we haven't imported the auth page into our actual route definition. Currently, we're just showing this thing. So we'll remove this and we'll put the auth component over here. And we will obviously import this component into this page. Now we should see the text and everything centered perfectly in the middle of the screen based on the UI that we defined in our page. Then I want to add a form because we're going to be using this form to actually log in. Now the form, we want to size it to be large, just like this. And then we also want to create a segment that is stacked. Now a segment, if you're not familiar with it, is just a component that is used to create a grouping of different related content. So in our case, we literally just want to put a button inside of here, like this. And we'll put a text called login for the button. Now, this is how it is looking. Let's make it look a little bit better. Let's put a color for this to be violet. And I also want the size to be large. And I want it to be fluid so that it adapts to its parent. So you can see it looks a little bit better now. We also want to be able to click on this button, and we will call a function called handle login, which we'll create right now. So handle login, and this function will be used to actually log in the user. Now, how are we going to log in this user? Well, to do that, we want to make a call to the API. There's an endpoint in the API that we can make to actually log in as a guest session. Now, I'm not going to be showing the docs, but you can check it out. I'm just going to be giving you guys the API endpoints straight up, and you can just copy and paste it to your project. Now, the way I want to do this is as follows. I want to use something called React Query. Now, React Query is really interesting because it facilitates a lot of the process for fetching data. Obviously, we still have to fetch the data manually using something like XUse or just a normal fetch API. However, React Query will handle all of the other extra stuff that we would have to handle ourselves, like being able to fetch the data on render, refetching the data if we want to, handling if the data is loading or if there was an error, and much more. I have a full video on React Query and why it's super cool and really, really useful. If you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But I'm not going to spend that much time just going over all the details of React Query in this video. We're just going to be using it because it is a powerful tool to do so. Since we already installed React Query, we need to actually set it up in our project by coming to the main.tsx file. Now, the reason why we need to come here is because React Query will need to do some context management. So we need to actually wrap our whole project around a provider that comes from React Query. So to do that, I'll import from at 10stack React Query, and I want to import a query client and a query client provider, just like this. Now the query client, we'll just define it by saying query client is equal to new query client, and then we'll just wrap our app around with the provider. So query client provider, and over here we'll put the client and we'll pass in the query client, and the app will go inside. Now, if you're confused by this, don't worry. This isn't that important. It just means that in order for React Query to work inside of our app, we have to wrap our whole app around with this provider. That's it. We're not going to be touching on this anymore. Now, let's go back to our index.tsx. Here, we want to make what is known as a mutation. So in React Query, we have two types of, not just in React Query, but in a lot of different technologies, we have two types of actions that we can make towards data. We can either query data or we can mutate data. Querying means getting the data, right? If you think about it as CRUD, it means fetching data so you can get into your client and you can display it to the users. And mutating includes all of the other stuff that involves changing the data, like adding new data, deleting data, and updating data. So in this case, we want to create a new user, so this is a mutation. So in React Query, I'm going to import a hook called the use mutation hook, which will be really useful for us. So I'm going to say use mutation. Over here, we're going to put a const that will be called equal to the use mutation. And all we have to do here is we actually have to pass in two things into the use mutation hook. We need to pass, first of all, a mutation key so that React Query can keep track of what this data is represented as. So we're going to call it login, like this. And we can put multiple keys. That's why it's an array, but we're just going to use one. And we need to put a mutation function. Now, a mutation function is just a function that will return the data for us. Now, this is where we're going to put the fetching logic of the data. So what we want is to actually create another file where we're going to create that function. Let's call it mutation.ts. Now, in this file, we want to create a function called mutation login, something like this. And it will be an asynchronous function, just like this. I'm having trouble typing today, but inside of this function, wait, why did you use that syntax? But yeah, inside of this function, we want to first fetch the data from the API. So we're going to say const res equals to await fetch. And then, by the way, if you see auto-completing, it's because I do have GitHub Copilot, but I'm not using it that much in the video so that you guys can obviously see me writing the code. But I hope it's not that distracting. But inside of here, I want to put the following URL. This over here is the endpoint in the movie database API that we're using that allows us to create a login as a guest. So this is going to return back a guest session ID that we're going to then store inside of our project and use it to make API requests to keep us logged in. So in order to log in, we'll just fetch this data, and we also have to pass in some headers so that we can identify to the API that we've actually created an account with the API, we have authenticated ourselves, all of this stuff that we did in the beginning of the video. If you recall, they give us two things. They give us a bearer authentication token and a API key. Now, we want to use in this one the token. And if you're confused on where to get that, you can actually come to the docs and they'll actually show you your token. When you go to any of the endpoints, they will actually show you over here at the top. So if you see here, the example requests, they'll have something like this, right? Authorization and a string. This is what you actually want to put inside of your API requests. Inside of your headers, you want to specify an authorization token just like this. And this is how it's going to look. And if we don't put this, the movie database API will think that we're just a random person making a request to their API and won't allow us to do so. So we do have to authenticate our requests by doing this thing. So now we'll get back this response. Let's check to see what this response says for now, right? So we'll actually return this res.json, right? We obviously want to convert this into JSON, but before we return, we'll console log the response. Actually, I'll say res.json again so we can actually see the response. And over here, I'll just import the mutation login function and pass it over here. Now, for now, let's just import the data that we get back from this mutation. But let's try to actually log in and see what happens in our request. So we'll open up our console over here and also our network tab because we can see the API requests happening, and we'll click on login. As you can see, nothing happened. And I immediately know why nothing happened. We haven't actually called the mutation yet. To call this mutation, they have a function called mutate, and we just have to call it in order to execute the fetching. So I'll make the handle login function asynchronous, and I'll say await mutate, just like this. Now I want to try to log in. And as you can see, it did make a request and it was successful. It did give us back a guest session ID, as you can clearly see over here. We can also see if this was console logged. It was, but apparently it was console logged as a promise, which is fine. We'll just, it was just to show you guys, but we can actually see the data being displayed over here. So what we want is to get this guest session ID and keep it somewhere inside of our app. Now, where I want to actually keep this is inside of the local storage, which is this part of the browser, because it will make it simple for us. If we leave the tab, we can just come back and it will still be here, meaning that the user will be persistently authenticated and logged in, even if they leave their computer. So I want to do something like that. And to do that, we're actually going to have to deal with this a little bit differently. We're going to come after the mutation and say and say local storage dot set item, and then we'll set an item called guest session ID equal to the data dot guest session ID, just like this. And if we do so, you'll see that when I click on the button now, it should set the correct information. Apparently, it is not actually setting the correct information, and I'm wondering why. It is actually creating a new guest session every time we log in, but let's check to see if we did something wrong. I believe the problem might be that we have this question mark, which I understand why this would actually cause a problem. I'll delete this question mark, and we should see that if I click login, yeah, it does create a session ID in our local storage. Now, we don't only want to just create this when we log in, we also want to be navigated to the homepage when we log in. So to do that, I'm going to use something from React Rotterdam called useNavigate, and it's a hook that allows us to just call a function and navigate to a different page. So I'm going to come over here and say const navigate equal to useNavigate, and then after we set the local storage item, I want to be navigated to the home page actually. And let's see if this works. I'll refresh this. I'll click login. And yeah, you can see it did navigate us to the home page and generated a new session ID. Now that we have the login functionality in place, let's start building our home page. So the home page will use a lot of the concepts that we've already addressed. So we'll move a little bit faster with it. And I want to show you guys kind of the structure of how this page will look like. We'll first create the component by saying, actually just creating the function and returning some UI. Over here at the top, we'll import some stuff from Semantic UI. So we're going to import from Semantic, I wrote from wrong. So from Semantic UI React, and we want to import a button from here. And inside of this UI, all we want to put is first a div, which will actually have a couple of inline stylings. We'll say that it has a margin top of 50, and I want the height of it to be auto, because we want the project or the page to like grow as more movies are put in. So we'll set it as auto. Then inside of this div, I want to create a button group, because what I want to actually display is the two buttons that are going to be containing the movies tab and the TV shows tab. If you recall, there were two tabs, right? And I want to click on them to then change the data that is being displayed. When I click on the button for the movies, I want to display the current top movies. And if we click on the button for the TV shows, it should display the current top TV shows. So to do that, we'll create a button group. And inside of this, I'll create a button. And this button will say movies, and we'll have a color that will change depending on whether or not we clicked on it or not. And to do that actual functionality, we're going to have to create some TypeScript stuff. We're going to come over here at the top, and we're going to say enum display type is equal to the following. Display type will be used for us to be determining if we want to display a movie or a TV show, right? So we'll have two entries. We'll have either a movie, which will be called movies, and TV shows, which will be called TV shows. And now we can use this as a way to determine which one we want to create by creating a state. So I'm going to say const equals to use state from React, and this will be of type display type. So it can either be a movie or a TV show. By default, we want this to already start as a movie, right? But as we click on the buttons, it will change that. So we'll say display type and set display type, just like this. Then I want to have an on click to this movies button. And on this on click, what I want to do is I want to alternate between the different types. So if we click on this one, I want to basically just set the display type to be equal to movies, or display type dot movies, right? To keep it consistent. And the color will only be blue, which is the color of the selected tab, if the display type is equal to display type dot movies. If that's true, we'll make the color blue. If not, we'll keep it undefined, just like this. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing for the other one, which is the TV shows, but obviously change the values to adapt. So TV shows, and then this will be TV shows, and then this will be TV shows as well, and this should be fine. Now, where are we seeing this? We're not seeing any of this actually appearing on the screen, and I understand it might seem a bit confusing for you guys, but let's start seeing the visual feedback so you guys can get a better understanding. Let's first just import the home component here and allow ourselves to see it in our screen. And as you can see, this is what we built. We basically created the two buttons, right? And we set that the color of the buttons depend on the value of this display type state. And the value of this state is supposed to determine which kind of media or display type we want to display, either a movie or a TV show. So if I click on the TV shows tab, it should color this. And if I click on the movies tab, it should color this. Now, obviously, currently, all it's doing is just switching between them and changing their colors. It's not actually changing anything being displayed because we haven't displayed anything, right? But let's do that right now. I'm gonna come over here and I want to create a new component called the column display component. So we're gonna say column display, and I wanna create a TSX component out of this, and we'll just say export const column display, just like this. The reason for this is because it doesn't matter if it is a movie or a TV show, I want to display very, very similar data. So I'll actually just combine both of them into a component and then just pass in the individual data depending on which of them I'm trying to actually display. So for this, we'll import and display right down below this the two types of displays. So we'll say div, and we'll create a style here. Actually, I'll put a style of margin top 20 so we can be a little bit further away from the buttons that we just created. And inside of this div, I want to basically display two different display types, right? So we'll first ask, okay, is display type equal to movies or TV show? If it's equal to movies, we want to display a column display component, which we haven't created, like we've created it, but we haven't actually done anything to it yet. So we'll just write the logic first and then add that stuff to this component. But we want to display a column display with the movies data. But if it's not, we want to display a column display with the TV show data. Now, how are we going to actually pass that? Well, inside of this column display, we can accept some props, right? And we'll obviously, and the prop I want to create is by creating an interface in TypeScript called props. And we'll say that we want some data, just like this. Now, what kind of data are we actually gonna get back from the APIs that we're running? So if you come over here to the API and you look at the documentation, when we search for movies, so we'll go to lists and we have here lists of movies here. We can find a bunch of options. I could have put the now playing or the popular. I think I chose the popular ones to display in my project. And you can see that the type of data that we get back from this is a bunch of information, right? We get a list of movies and each of them contains a movie poster, genre IDs, a description, a title, the movie language, the popularity, the release date, the title, the voting stuff, a bunch of stuff. So we kind of want to structure how we want to display the data because we don't want to display everything, right? So actually what I want to do is I want to create an interface called display data, which is going to contain the data that I want to display for both TV shows and movies inside of their individual cards, right, in the homepage. So first of all, I want each movie and TV show to have an ID, which will be a number, then an overview, which will be a string. Overview is, as you can see over here, it's a description of the movie. It's like a mini description of it, a summary of it. So if you're not familiar with the names I'm giving to the data, it's because I actually already know the API, but I'm just following the structure that they provide us with their data. And then I want to have a poster path, which will be a string. It will be a link to the poster, title, voting average, so the average like voting for this thing, and release date, which will be a string as well. So both movies and TV shows in the homepage will display this information. So inside of our props, our data that we're going to get from this prop will actually be a list of movies, right? Or TV shows. But the format of that list will be of the structure that we just determined over here. And this is pretty cool. But we also want to know if this is currently displaying a movie or TV show. So we also want to pass down as prop a display type, which will be of type display type. Actually, I don't think I exported this enum, so I'll just export it and I'll say display type and just import it. But yeah, so this is our props, and we'll create a variable called props and pass in the props just like this. And whenever we do something with this component, we will use those props. Now that means that when we are displaying something like this, we can pass in as props both the data, which we currently don't have, but it's exactly what we're going to do right now. And we also want to pass in the display type, which obviously for the first one will be a display type of movies, because it will be the movies displaying. And the other one will be for TV shows. So I'll say TV shows. Now I hate that this looks red because obviously it's missing stuff. But it's missing stuff because we haven't actually grabbed the data. So we'll deal with this now. Let's actually fetch the data for both the top, like the popular movies right now and the popular TV shows right now. So to do this, I want to create another file to fetch the data, similar to how we did with the auth. But since we want to fetch data this time, we don't want to alter data, we're going to create a file called query, not mutation. So inside of this file, it's gonna contain the functions for both fetching the TV shows and fetching the movies. So I'm just gonna copy that, the function that we created before, because we'll actually look very similar. And I just wanna change the name of these functions to fetch movies and fetch TV shows. So I'll come over here and I'll say fetch TV shows. Now in fetch movies, the API link will be as follow. I'll put the correct link over here. It's basically this, just copy and paste this. And for the other one will be the same, but we'll just switch from movie. Wait, I did it wrong. Let's just switch from movie to TV. So it's a very similar API links. And we'll also be using the same type of authentication. So this should return the correct information. Now we're gonna come to our homepage and we're gonna import those two things. We're going to import from /query. We're going to import both functions, fetch movies and fetch TV shows. Now, similar to before, we're going to be using a hook from React Query, but this time the hook is going to be called use query and not use mutation. Now, the use query hook is really cool. We're going to do the same thing as we did before by passing a query key. And in this case, let's do movies first. The query key will be movies, and it will be used to identify this data later on if we want to. Again, I won't go into too much detail about the intricacies of React Query. So if you want to see that, just check out my other videos. But it's really important that we set an ID for our query just like this. Then the query function, and auto-complete it for me, but it will be the fetch movies one. And we'll do the exact same thing for the TV shows. Just change this to TV shows and this to fetch TV shows. And we'll grab the data for both. Now, both of them can't be called data, so we can actually alter the variable name for them by putting this thing and saying that this is movie data and saying that this one is TV show data. Just like this. Now, we also want to check if the data is loading or not. And React Query provides that to us really easily by just saying is loading. Now, again, I can't have both things called is loading. So I need to change the name of the variables. This one will be called is loading movies. And this one will be called is loading TV shows. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. And we'll just change this. Now, let's use the information that we just got. Straight off the bat, I want to check to see if the stuff is loading. So I'll say if is loading movies or is loading TV shows, then I actually want to display a message saying, like, actually determining that they are loading. So I'll say something really simple and dumb here. I'll just say like, yeah, div loading just for now. And then if they are like not loading, it means the data has been received, we will display the column display. We'll put this all inside of this conditional statement, and we'll see that if we were to fetch the data, this is what would happen. But before we do that, let's pass in the data through props. We'll pass in the data for column display for movies as movie data. And for this one, we'll pass in TV show data. Now it's still giving us an error, but the reason for that is because we haven't returned anything on this column display thing. So for now, just to test out if this data is actually working, we'll just return a link or return a piece of the data that we got. So we'll say props.data, and we know that for a fact when we get back this data, as an example here, we'll get an object as a response, which includes an item called results. And instead of results, will contain the array of movies or TV shows. So I'm going to say data.results, and I'll grab the first one, and I'll try to grab the title of it. Oh, it seems like it's not allowing me because actually I should pass in not just the data, I should pass in the movie data.results. And the same with this. Just like this. And then here, I'll just grab the title. Let's check to see if this is actually working. Let's come to our project, and straight off the bat, it is working. As you can see, the first movie in the list, similar to the demo, is Mission Impossible. Let's see TV shows. It seems like TV shows isn't really working, and I guess it might be because of how the data is structured, maybe. Let's check. I've made 2 API requests, which is expected, one for movies and one for TV shows. This one is for the movies and this one is for the TV shows. Yeah, it seems like there's no title for a TV show. We'll probably need to use name instead of title because it's the name of the TV show. So in order to actually differentiate that, we could do something like if the props.display type is equal to display type dot movies, then we'll display this. But if it's not, we'll display props.data dot name, something like this. Now it's going to give us an error, obviously, because we said that it has to have a title, but we actually put a question mark on title, and we'll put the name option over here and also put a question mark on name. So both of them will work. And you'll see that now it does display the name of the TV show, whatever this TV show is. But it seems like it is working. It seems like we are fetching the data. We just now have to display the data in our page. Now, in order to display this data, we're actually going to delete all of the stuff that we did. Actually, I'll keep this just because I think we will probably use it later on. I'll create a variable called title, or yeah, I'll just say title, even though it can be either the title or the name. And I'll just paste this, and it will basically set the title equal to whatever we need over here. And then whenever we want to use this title, we'll just use this variable. But yeah, bottom line, let's start styling this. So first, I need to create a grid. And this will obviously be from Semantic UI. I want the number of columns to be 3. It's nice that it auto-completed. And I want it to be stackable. I also want it to be centered. And I want it to be vertically aligned to the top. And I also want it to be padded vertically. Now inside of this grid, I want to put some stuff. I want to loop through the data, and for each item of the data, I want to put a grid column. So we're going to say not props.data in itself, because I'll actually grab the data from the props like this. I'll say data, and I'll also grab the display type. And this means that I can actually just delete the props thing over here and just use the variables we just destructured. And then over here, I'll say data dot map, and we'll say that each item inside of this array will be of type display data. So we can now close this and return that for each item in that array, we want to return back the following UI. So we want to actually display a grid.column, like I said, and we can put the key for this column as the display data.id. So the ID of the movie or the TV show. And then we want to use Semantic UI's card group. Semantic UI has cards, which obviously would mean it's like a really nice pre-made component, and we want to have a group of them. So I'll say card group, and we'll put over here inside of this a card. Now, this card will have the following props. It will be fluid, it will have an image, it will have a header, it will have a meta, and it will also have a description. Now, they're all things that compose a Semantic UI card. So we can actually put our data all in one place by just passing the props. The image will obviously be the poster path thing that we got from the API. Now, the way this API stores image is they store all of their image in this URL over here. And whatever you put over here is the poster path for the specific image you want. So if you want to fetch the image, you have to go to this URL plus the poster path for the specific image. So we'll say over here, display data dot poster path. Then the header, we probably want it to be the title of the movie or TV show. So we already have that title because we grabbed it over here. So actually, this makes no sense. I just noticed. Sorry about this. This isn't the code that I actually wrote before the video. I'm obviously making changes as I progress. But I just realized this wouldn't actually work because this isn't inside of the loop. So what I want to do is I want to delete this and copy that thing and just put it such that inside of the header itself, we'll check to see if the display type of the movies, then we grab whatever this display data.title is, and we'll do the same for the other one. We'll grab the name instead. So if it is a movie, it'll grab the title. If it is a TV show, it'll grab the name. Now for the meta, we'll say that we'll put some text here. We'll say, first of all, the release date is equal to, and we'll put here the release date according to the data we got. And then we'll put like a block in the middle, and it will show the rating just like this, the voting average. Then for the description, it will just be the overview that we can get from the display data. But we also don't want to display the whole thing because some movies have like descriptions or overviews with like 1,000 characters, and some have like 2 sentences. So I actually want to put a max to it and put 3 dots at the end so that we can standardize the size. So I'm going to say slice this text between the first character and the 350th character. So I only want to keep 350 characters in the description of the movie or TV show to make it simple. And at the end, I'll just add the 3 dots. So let's check this out. It already looks perfect, right? Almost perfect. Obviously, there's some minor things that I'm going to edit, but this is the beauty of using something like Semantic UI because it literally does a lot of the work for you and gets you started with your UI really quickly. So the card is exactly what we built over here. But you might notice that I can't really click on it, right? Which I could before. And if I clicked on it, it would actually bring me to a page for that specific movie. Right now, we can't click on it. So I want to actually wrap this card around with a link. So I'll change this to a link. link. Oh, I should actually put this here. And this link will be from React.DOM. So I'll import it from React.DOM. And over here, we'll just add that it will link to, and this is an interesting thing. Where do we want to link this to? Like, which page do we want to go to? Well, what we want to do is take advantage of what is known as URL params for this. So in React.DOM, we have our routes, but we can create what is known as a dynamic route, which is a route that will change depending on some part of the URL. So I'll create here a movie route that will also take in a ID as a param to this URL. And based on this, we can actually change how the page looks just by the URL. And we'll do the exact same thing with the TV shows. We'll create a route that will show one TV show based on its ID. Now, we haven't really created this page yet, or this component yet, so we'll do that right here in our folders. We'll just create for now a folder for an individual movie, and inside of it I'll create an index.tsx, and we'll create one for individual TV show, and we'll create an index.tsx as well. Then what I want to do is I'll just create the skeleton of each of them. I'll say movie, and I'll just return probably a text called movie. And I'll do the exact same thing with TV show and call this TV show. Now, back here in our app, we'll just pass in those two as the elements to the route. So we'll pass this one as movie, and we'll pass this one as TV show, like this. Now, we'll see that if we come over here, when we click on the card, we want it to link to the individual, either a movie or a TV show. So I'm going to add backticks as quotes, and I'm going to basically say that I want to go to the route that will be determined by whether or not our display type is the movies one, so display type.movies, or not. So if it is the display types.movies, then over here I want to go to the route which is /movies, or movie actually. And over here, if it's not, we want to go to the one that is /TV show. But this is not it. It's not just going to either a movie or a TV show. We have to put the ID after it. So we'll put another slash, and we'll just put whatever the display data .id is. So we'll save this, and if we click on this, we should actually be redirected to the page which is /movie/ whatever the ID for Mission Impossible is, which is exactly what we do. And it should change depending on the movies we're clicking. Now, if I go to a TV show, it should actually change to a TV show / whatever the ID is, which again is what happens. So it seems like our thing is basically going on pretty smoothly, but obviously nothing is being displayed when we go to an individual movie or an individual TV show. So let's work on that. Over here in the movies, I actually want to, first of all, create a styling for this. I want to give a margin top of 50. So we again have some space from the navbar. And then inside of this, I want to do a bunch of semantic UI stuff. I'll first determine this to be a segment. Then I'll write a header for this page. I'll say header. And the header will just display the movie title. Now, how are we going to get the movie title? Well, we want to get specific details from this movie, even more details than the ones we got from the generic list popular movies endpoint that we used for the homepage, because we can actually do that by passing an ID. There is an endpoint over here called movie details, which if you pass a movie ID, it will return back a bunch of details from that specific movie. And the same thing exists with TV shows, so it will be all pretty similar. So to do that, we need the ID. And like I said, we can get the ID by using something known as the useParams hook. So if I come over here and say use params, we can get the params from the URL, and it will be a string. And over here, we can just destructure the ID because it is the name of the param that we determined over here. Now, this is the movie ID or TV show ID, correct? So we'll actually check to see if there's no ID, because there is a chance that you might get to a point like that. And we'll just return invalid movie ID. So if we went to over this and we try to go without an ID, you'll see it will actually not work, right? So now what we want to do is we want to fetch the data using this ID. So again, like before, we're going to be using the use query hook. I'll just even copy all this stuff and I'll paste it over here, but obviously we'll change it accordingly. I'll import the use query hook. I'll change this to be just an individual movie, not movies. And I'll change this to be fetch movie details, which will be a function we'll create in a second. Now, the data, we don't have to define a specific name for those variables, because again, like it already, this is the only fetching that we're going to be doing in this component. But we do need to create the query.ts file inside of this folder. Now, similar to the other functions, this is how this function will look like. It has a minor difference. The endpoint we need is this one over here. You can just copy and paste it. We'll be using the same kind of authentication. So you can just leave this the same. But the difference is that depending, we have to pass a param to the URL. And that param is the movie ID. So that means that now this function will require an argument. We called it movie ID of type string, and we just pass it to the URL so that we can actually fetch the correct movie. Now, to make that work, we have to actually pass in the movie ID just like this. We'll first import fetch movie details, and we'll pass in the ID as an argument. So now we're passing the ID that we get from the params into this function and fetching the correct data. Which means that now what we can do is we can just, first of all, question if it is loading. There's actually a cool thing from Semantic UI called a loader. So I'll actually just return this. I'll return a loader and say that it is active. And you'll see that if I come over here, for a brief second, it does show a little loader over here. Obviously, we are not doing anything with the data yet, so that's why it's kind of like failing the page. But let's work on that. If it's not loading, we'll display the data. And the first piece of data that I want is the title. So I'll say data.title, right? Now, I don't want to specify what kind of data we want for this because I want to put it up to you. This page will encompass a lot of data. If you want to display, you can even display everything that they allow you to return. Because if you check on this API documentation, they can return a bunch of stuff, right? I'm only using a couple of them. And that's why I don't want to put in constraints to this data, so I won't create an interface like I did with display data and stuff. I'll just do it directly over here. But basically, with the title, I also imported the header from Semantic UI. Then I'm going to put a grid over here. And this grid will have a couple props. First one will be columns, and will be of 2. We'll have 2 columns. It will be divided, and I want to align the text to the left because I think it will look a little bit cooler. I also want to put some styling because I also want to put some margin so it doesn't get all cluttered. So I'll say margin top, and I'll say 20. Then inside of this grid, I want to create a grid row. And this grid row will contain a column, right? Because we said we want to have 2 columns. So grid.column, and the width of this will be 6, 6, just like this. And we'll close this. And inside of here, I want to put a div that will contain a bunch of styling stuff that we might want to have. For example, I want to add the following styling. I want to say that the display is flex. Then I want to say that I want to align the items to the center. I want to justify the content to the center. And I want the height of it to be 100% of its parent, just like this. Then save this, and inside of this div, I want to put an image, and this image will be the poster for the movie. So it'll be very similar to what we've done before. I'll just put a size of this image to be medium, and I'll also say that this image should be centered. But then the actual source of this image, we'll do it very similar to what we did with the column display. Just grab this and put it over here. Oh, centered is wrong, just like this. And I'll just paste this. And for this, obviously, it won't be display data, it will just be data. And this won't be image, this will be source. And weird, it seems like it's giving us an error. Oh, it seems like it didn't even import from Semantic UI. Yeah, so it fixed the error. But basically, this is how the image is going to look like. If we come over here and I click on this now, this is how it is kind of structured right now. We have a title and an image to the left. But to the right, we'll have all of the other stuff. So we'll get out of this column and we'll create another column. So we'll say grid column, we'll make the width 10th, and over here, we'll add a list. A list will allow us to determine, to like display a bunch of information one on top of the other. Now, first of all, I want to add an item to this list, which will be the header, which will be if this movie is for adults or not. So that's the first piece of information that I actually want to display. And the structure of how I'm going to do this is similar to what it's actually suggesting on GitHub Copilot over here. I'll have a list.header, and I'll say something like, is the movie for adults? And over here, I'll just say that if the data.adult is true, then I'll say yes, and then I'll say no. If you don't know, adult is actually part of the data, and it should represent whether or not the movie is for adults or not. Wait, I'll show this. Yeah, it's a Boolean. But this is kind of the structure of how we want it. So I'll actually copy this and we'll create a bunch of them. The next one will be for the budget of the movie. So I'll say budget, and we'll say movie or data.budget. Then we'll do one for the genres, and this one actually is a little bit different. What I want to do is I want to say it can be multiple of them, so we actually have to loop through some of them. So I'll say data.genres.map, and for each genre, which we'll just for now give a type of any, we want to return back a list.item, which will contain the genre.name, just like this. I also want to pass the key, which will just be the genre.id. Then let's see how it's looking so far. Yeah, it seems to be looking cool. Then let's create another item. This one will be for, let's do IMDb ID. I think this is important because in case people actually want to use IMDb, they can just look at this and check out. So I'll say ID, and then I'll just display the IMDb ID. Then let's do it again, and let's do popularity. So I'll put popularity. This is again, I think, just how popular the movie is. Popularity. Then production companies. This one is actually kind of cool. It's again an array, so I want to do it like this. I want to say production companies, and inside of here I want to say data.production companies.map, and then I'll again grab the data and then just return back the company.name. And I'll actually join all of them by a comma, just like this. And what this will make is it will grab the list of company names for the production, and it will actually just put a comma and make all of that into a single string. Now we'll come over here and we'll just add a couple more things. We'll paste it again and we'll say release date, and we'll say release date. I'm sorry that this part is kind of like boring, but it's part of it. You can actually change it however you want. You can make it such that it is a little bit different. You can make it such that you're adding different data to make it more cool, but I'm just doing what I planned on doing before. So we'll add revenue. So revenue, and then we'll do runtime. And then we're doing a lot of things. So runtime, then voting average, whatever that even means. I'll put vote average, and we're almost done. I'll say vote average, and I think the last one is just the language. So I'll say language, and here I'll grab the original language. Okay, pretty cool. This is all the data we're displaying. And I just want to display this. You can add other stuff if you want to as well, but you can see that this now is working for all of them. It will display all the information depending on the movie that you actually click, which is really, really cool. So we're pretty much done with the movies component for this. Now let's do the exact same thing but for TV shows. So I'll close a bunch of these tabs because it's kind of annoying me, and I'll open up the TV show tab. And over here, I'll actually just copy all of this and paste it here because it will be very similar. It will have some differences, but it will be extremely similar. So I'll say TV show, and over here I'll also create a query.ts similar to the movie one. And I will even copy the query from here and paste it on this one. And this just change this to TV instead of movie, and change this to TV show ID instead of movie ID, and paste this over here. Then on the TV show, oh, actually it's still called fetch movie. I'll change this to fetch TV show details. And then just paste this over here. And then paste this over here as well, and then change this to TV show. For TV shows, it will be different. Like I said, we will change this to TV show as well. But what we want is a diversity in the kind of data we're displaying, because TV shows have different data when you fetch the endpoint. So first of all, we want to, instead of just displaying the title at the top, I'll display the name, right? Because this is how we have it, right? And right now it's displaying all this stuff, but it's not really what we want to. And I'll show you exactly why. There's some stuff that we put for movies that we don't want to put here, and there's some stuff that we didn't put in movies that we want to put here. So the first is, I don't care if this is for adults. I'm not going to put this on the TV show. I actually want to put who created this TV show. So I'm going to say created by, and then over here, I'll just display the created by. But this isn't just one. It can be created by multiple people. So this is an array. And I'll just, for each creator of this TV show, we'll do the same thing we did with production companies. We'll just join into one string. And it seems like this one wasn't created by anyone, which is weird. Let's see if it's just because of this one. Yeah, it was. Some TV shows might not have the proper data. So we do take that into account. But yeah, let's continue. Then what we want to do is, actually, let's make this a description, not a header. Let's put actually, no, we'll keep that as a header, but we'll make this a description. So description, and then we'll close this like this. And it will look like this. It does change a little bit of the color. But basically, what else do we want? We want episode runtime. So we'll change this to runtime, or episodes runtime. And this will change to data.episode runtime, and we want to join because this is also an array, as you can see. And there is apparently the episodes for Loki is 52 minutes, which is pretty cool. Then we want to do the date of when it was first aired. So we'll change this from genres to, actually we'll keep genres, but we'll change the IMDb thing to the first air date. And this will be simple. It's one of the easier ones. We'll just say first air date. Then for genres, actually, I want to change this to, instead of a list item, I want to change this to a label. And I might want to do this with the other one too. I think this is what I did when I wrote the initial project, because a label just looks a little bit better. You see, it looks like this. Yeah, I'll do the same for the other one. Let's go to movies. Where is the genres? Yeah, I'll change this to label. And then just import. Okay, here what we want to do is we've done genres. Now we want to display the networks. I'll delete a bunch of this stuff because actually no, I'll keep some. I'm constantly thinking if I should just delete so that it becomes more easy for you guys to look at it. But basically for networks, we want to display a list of the networks that this TV show has aired in. So we'll say data.networks.map. And no, I don't want to just display this. I want to actually show the pictures of each network. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open like this and display an image, because the network's endpoint actually returns back the image. So in image, we'll just pass a key, which will be the network, the specific network.id. Then we'll pass a source, which will be that link that we put on a bunch of the other things, plus the network.logo path, which is the path to the actual logo of the network. Then we'll make this really small. So I'll say size equal to, I'll not say mini, I'll probably say small. And then I'll say, I actually want to put some styling to it. Yeah, this is actually pretty good. We'll see this over here. Maybe it is a little bit too big. Maybe should I put this as mini? That's too small. I'll just keep it as small. But yeah, now we're going to continue with this and we'll put number of episodes. Have we done production companies? We haven't. So we'll just keep that. And we'll put number of episodes. Like this. Number of episodes. And I'll change this to, again, number of episodes. And then I'll do number of seasons, because I think that might be good as well. Seasons, and this will be similar. Now, should I do popularities? No. Revenue? No, because this doesn't really make any sense. Runtime as well, I'll just remove it. Vote average, sure. And language, I'll remove language to make it a little bit different. But I do want to add one thing, which is the actual individual seasons and how many episodes per season there is, which is something really cool that I added on the demo, right? So to do that, what we'll do is we'll add a list item. So we'll say list.item. And inside of here, we'll first put a header, like we've been doing. And we'll say seasons. And then over here, we'll add a list.description. And in this, we'll put an accordion, which is a really cool thing from Semantic UI. This accordion will have a default active index of 0, and it will have a couple panels to it, right? Because that's how an accordion is. We also want to put it styled here, which will make it styled, obviously. But the panels is a piece of UI that we have to generate somewhere over here in our project. And to not make it exist inside of this massive line of UI, I'm actually going to create it up here. So I'll say const season panels is equal to wait, where is it? Yeah, season panels is equal to data.seasons.map, and then I'll grab each individual season and also call it any. And inside of here, we'll just return all of this together. And I'll say return an object that contains a key, which will be the season ID. Season.id. Then I hate when it just keeps suggesting me stuff and I'm recording a video. But I'll say title, and then I'll put season like this, and I'll say, and then I'll just put a specific number of the season. Then I'll say content, and a panel in an accordion can contain an object contain content, which can contain some UI inside of it. It's a bit confusing, but if you've played around with semantic UI, you'll understand why I'm doing this. But we'll actually put a card inside of each individual panel. So we'll say card, and we'll add a style to it. The style will just be the height of the card, because I don't want it to be massive. I'll just say that it's 70 pixels. Then I'll import the card. Now I'll close this over here, and we'll just pass in some props. We'll say the content of this will be, we'll just say the meta of this will be the specific season.air date, which is the date that this was aired. And then we'll have a description, which will be a season.episode count. So say episode count. So we just want to display the air date of the season and how many episodes it has. I also want to put I want to make this into a string and just do like this, and then say episodes at the end. So it's like, oh, it has 52 episodes or whatever. And then we just pass in this panels to the panels thing over here. Let's check to see how this looks, to be honest. It does look kind of cool. It has the two things, but you see it's kind of adjusting the height of the total thing depending on how big or how extended we are extending this thing, right? This isn't what we want, because we want it to actually be, if there's more than 2 seasons, which by the way, there are a lot of them that will be, like, let's go to this. This looks like an anime. So it must have like 500 seasons, right? It doesn't. That's cool. Let's go to another one. This is movies. Let's go to TV shows. What can have a lot of seasons? Okay, House Hunters. Yeah, this has like 1 billion seasons, and this doesn't look cool. What we want is to have a certain fixed height box with this accordions, and we'll just be able to scroll within it. So to do it, we'll just come to the specific part where we create this thing over here, and we'll add some style to this description. So we'll say that the height of this has to be fixed as, let's say like 200 pixels, and we'll have an overflow on the Y direction as scroll. So if it overflows on the Y direction, we just scroll. And this is exactly what happens. It has a fixed height, and we can just scroll if it ever overflows. So it looks pretty cool. And we can obviously click on each of them and see how many episodes the season has. Obviously, the data might be broken. I'm just telling you guys, some of the data for some specific movie or TV show might be broken, but for the most part, it has good data and it works. So straight off, we just kind of finished the TV shows part, which is great because I don't know if you noticed, I hated this part of building the project, but it looks kind of cool in my opinion, and it does a lot to the project as a whole. Now, what we want to do is actually allow ourselves to rate a TV show or a movie, which is one of the most important parts of this project. And it's the last thing we're going to be doing in this project, together with displaying the movies that we've rated or the TV shows that we've rated. Okay, so in order to be able to rate movies or TV shows, for example, we want to come to our column display component, something that we haven't touched in a bit. And we want to add something to the bottom of it. So right below the link over here, we actually want to add a form from Semantic UI. And this form basically will be used as a way for us to have the button so we can actually rate. So I'm going to give this a style of margin top 10, again, like we've been doing so far, so we can space things out. And then below here, I'll put a form.group. And we'll say inline, and we'll put a form.field, then a form.input, and the input will look kind of different. It won't actually look like this because we won't have it will be self-closing, and then we'll come over here and we'll put a type for it to be input. Wait, why is it not giving me what's happening? Oh, it grabbed the form from React.DOM and not the form from semantic UI. So make sure you that that's not what you did as well. So we'll say type, and we'll give a type of number. Then we'll put min for a minimum amount in this form. We'll obviously say a minimum ratings of 0. The max is of 10. Now, the ratings, how you vote, you can vote on intervals of 0.5 according to the API. So I want to say that the step is of 0.5. And what this means is, if we see over here, now we have this little thing over here, as we click, it will increase by 0.5. And again, you can see that we can't go below 0, and we shouldn't be able to go above 10, right? So now we'll come here and we'll add an onChange property that we'll obviously deal with, and we'll have an action prop as well that we're going to need. Now this action prop is kind of cool because with a form input, we can actually add some styling to it whilst also adding the functionality to submitting this form. So just before we do that, we'll do the onChange first, which is we'll have a state called rating, and we'll create it up here, which will change depending on how we click on that. So I'll say use state, and then it'll be 0, whatever, and then we'll say rating, and we'll say set rating. This will be a number, and we'll say that whenever there's a change in this input, we're going to set the rating equal to whatever this event dot target dot value is. And we'll obviously, we obviously have to convert it into a number because this is a number, and if it grabs it, it'll probably grab it from the text. So now we do keep track of this, but we need to add some actions. So first of all, what action do I want to put? And like I said, an action in this case is basically, this is an input, but when you put an action prop, it will add a small button next to the input that you can click on it and it will cause the thing to submit. So we can actually style that button by, first of all, adding the color, and I want to make it violet because it's a color that we've been using. Then I want to put a label position and we'll make it right. Then I want to put an icon, and you can see the different icons they have. I like the star one because it makes sense to rate something using a star. And then I'll say the content is rate because then this will be what will be inside of the button when we click. And the on click for now, let's just do this, but you'll see that this is how it is looking. It's looking pretty good. Now, when we click on it, all it's doing is literally just console logging whatever number we put here, right? So you see, it will console log 8. But we don't want that. We actually want to rate the thing. So how are we going to rate this thing? Well, what we want to do is we want to have another mutation logic, right? Because if you recall, we're adding a rating to a movie, so it is a mutation. So I want to come over here to the top of this of our, no, it's actually on the column display. I'll come over here at the top and I'll put a mutation. So I'll say const equal to use mutation, and again, this will have a mutation key, and the first one will be rate movie, just like this, and the second one will be a mutation function. Now the mutation function will take in an ID, and it will be a number, and then it will call some sort of function that we're going to create called rate movie, and it will not only pass the ID, but it will also pass the rating that we have on the input, just like this. Now, we have to create this specific function, but not only that, we actually have to duplicate this because we also want to do the same thing for TV shows, right? So I'll say rate TV show and change this to rate TV show, just like this. Now I'll come to the thing over here, and I'll create a mutation.ts, and I'll copy, similar to the mutation we have over here, I'll copy this and I'll paste it over here. Let's change this to rate movie, and we'll make a similar one and call it rate TV show. Now, I'll tell you something. This is probably the most different API request we're doing in this tutorial, because how this API works is you have to authenticate using your auth token if you are doing everything but actions. When you're doing actions like rating a movie or getting a movie that was rated inside of a guest session, you actually have to authenticate using your API key. And we've kept track of both, right? I mentioned in the beginning of the video. So in order to make this work, we're not going to do this. We're actually going to do it a bit different. We're not going to put the authorization thing over here at all. We're going to put some headers, but they're going to be like normal headers that you usually put when you're making an API request. I'm actually going to change this also to say char set equal to UTF-8, just to specify a little bit more. And what I want to do as well is, I also have to put another thing. And what I want to do is I actually want to put the following endpoint. And I'll explain what it is in a second. So this endpoint over here, and let me actually change the backticks. This endpoint over here is kind of interesting. We will need the movie ID from the arguments. And we'll also need the rating, right? From the arguments. Now, when you make an API request to this API for adding a rating to a movie, I'll even show it to you guys. It's not adding rating, it's add rating here. Add a rating. It requires a couple of things. It requires a movie ID. It requires the body with the rating. It requires a content type, and that's what I actually did. And it also requires the authentication using the API key. But also, if we are a guest session, if we're using a session and we're a guest, we have to pass in the guest session ID. Even if we weren't, we would have to pass the session ID. But we're guests. That's how we set up our authentication. So we'll pass in a guest session ID. So let's go through step by step which parts we added. So first of all, we put the endpoint over here. And after the movie, we put the movie ID that we want to rate. Then we actually have to pass in our guest session ID, which is something we stored when we logged in inside of our local storage. So I say here that the guest session ID is equal to what we're getting from the local storage. But most importantly, right after this, we put an ampersand to say there's more variables that we want to pass in this request. And then we put the API key, which is how they determine how authenticated we are based on our API key. Now, it is not safe to just put your API key straight up like this. It's actually recommended that you use an .env file. So I'm going to actually do this. I'll say .env over here. And inside of this, we'll create a variable for our API key. I'm going to call it Vite API key. Now, the reason why I called it Vite in the beginning is because when you create environment variables, creating a project with Vite, you do have to put this thing before the name of the variable or else it won't work. So my API key is this one over here. And you might be wondering, oh, why are you showing your API key? Because I'm not stupid. I'm gonna delete this right after I'm done with the video, like this account, so you guys don't use my API key. But it's important to know that I put it as the .env variable, because then when I publish this to GitHub, I'll just hide my .env file, so it's not published with my API key, and my API key is not public. So how do I actually put that API key over here? Well, in Vite, to grab an actual env variable, you have to say import.meta.env the name of the variable. So I'll say Vite API key, just like this. And this should work. The only thing we need left is the body to this request. And I'll put here the body. And I'll actually make the body straightforward. I'll make it into JSON, which is a string. So I'll say value is equal to the rating. Now, if you're confused with what I'm doing, is because if you look at the API documentation they have an example of what a request would look like, a successful one. And as you can see, you pass in your body looking like this. And it's exactly what I did over here, right? I passed in a value, and the value of it is the rating. So now let's save this, and let's just copy this whole thing and paste it inside of this one. It's the same thing for the TV show. The difference is this is TV show ID, and this is TV, and then this is also TV show ID. So the rest is basically the same. So let's come back to this. Now we will just import this, and we'll add all missing imports. And this should pretty much be working. We now just need the function. So I'll grab the mutate function, but obviously I have to change this to rate movie mutation. And I'll also call this rate TV show mutation. Like this. And okay, that's fine. Now let's make it such that when you click on the button, it will rate either a TV show or a movie. Now, what we pass over here will depend on the display type, right? So I'm actually going to create over here a variable called rate, which will be a function that will be the result of either one of these functions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, if the display type that we're in is equal to display type dot movies, then the rate function will be equal to rate movie mutation. And if it's not, oh, actually I should use and if it's not, it will be equal to rate TV show mutation. So we're just alternating between the functions that we got from here and making them all into one variable. So I can just come over here and just say that if I want to rate this, I'll just call the rate function and pass in the ID. So I'll say display data.id of the specific movie or TV show. So now let's check to see if this is working. We'll open up our network tab because there's no confirmation as of right now that a rating was successful. So we'll come over here and we'll try to rate this movie an 8. You'll see that nothing seems to be happening, which is interesting. I actually don't know why nothing's happening. Let's check to see if there is a problem here. Let's go to mutation. Let me try something. Let me try to put a method to this, a method of post, because it is a post request. I think this should probably work. Let's try to rate this movie again an 8. And yeah, it did work. We see here that it did successfully rate this movie, which is great. How do we know that it was rated? Well, we get the return back, but we currently are not fetching the rated movies. So for now, we'll just assume it worked because the network request returned a success. But one thing I want to do is, if it is a success, I want to actually put some visual feedback, right? I want to actually put a toaster over here at the top that will appear and show that it was successful in rating. So to do that, we're actually going to be using a really cool library called ReactToastify. And I've been using this library for a while now. I know how to make snack bars / toasters manually. I have a video on that if you're interested. But using this library is actually way simpler. So what I want to do is over here at the top, I'll just actually install before. So I'll say yarn add ReactToastify, and it installed. So I'll just import over here from React /Toastify, and I want to import something known as the toast function, which will basically trigger a toast to appear at the top. And then I also need to import something called React /Toastify /dist. This thing over here. It's basically the CSS that the library provides for us. I need to import it in the file I need. But not only that, I also need to put a specific component from ReactToastify into the root of my application for it to work. So I'm going to go to the main.tsx. I'm going to import this at the top and grab the toast container. Toast container. Just like this. And I'll just paste it probably below the app, just over here. We just have to leave this somewhere in here. And whenever we call the toast function, ReactToastify will know to display this in our screen. So it doesn't matter where we put, as long as it's at the root of our app. And now what I can do is the following. I can come over here to one of our mutations. Let's start with the rate movie mutation. And inside of this thing over here, we can actually put a function called onSuccess, which basically will be triggered if this mutation was successful or not. Same thing can be done for an on error, right? If there is any errors, it will display over here. And we want to take advantage of that because we will throw a toast displaying a successful message if it was successful, and one displaying a failure message if it was failed. So over here, I'll do what it was recommended there. I'll just do this for success, and then I'll do const on error, and I'll do this just for now. And then I'll pass both of them to my thing over here. See, obviously, since they're both the same name, I can actually, in JavaScript or TypeScript, I can just remove it just like this, and then save it. And I'll do the exact same thing for the TV shows. Now let's test to see how this works. If I try to rate Five Nights at Freddy's as an 8, and I click rate, we should see a toast appearing at the top. Now, is this all? Well, there's a lot more that we can do to this. We could specify the position. We could specify how long it takes. For example, if I wanted, I could just literally put over here that if it's successful, I want it to auto close in, 1 second. Then you'll see that it's actually a lot faster. I'll try to rate this one as a 7. You'll see it stays for like 1 second. So I made a difference, right? I liked how it was by default. So I'll actually just leave it like this. But you can add a bunch of configurations as long as you look at the React Toastify library and see what customizations you want to add. But it is really cool, right? I love having toasters in projects. It adds a little bit of UI that definitely adds to the overall aesthetic and styling of the project and makes it look a lot more professional. So now we've rated a bunch of movies. We can even rate some TV shows. I'll give a 10 to Loki. And yeah, it seems like rating TV shows is also working. All we have to do now, other than also fixing the clear error in styling over here, which I'll do at the end, is make it such that we can display the movies and the TV shows that were rated. So to do that, I'm going to create the rated page. So I'll come over here and I'll just close all of these tabs. They're kind of annoying me. And I'll create a folder called the rated folder. Oh, it's already created, right? We created in the beginning of the video. Yeah, over here we have an index page. So we'll just export const rated, and we'll create this component. No, this will be a function like this, and it will return for now just a div. Now let's import this into our app.tsx and put it over here. And then just import this and start working on it. So for the UI of it, I'm going to keep it simple, but a little bit different from what we've been doing. So I'm going to put a container from Semantic UI. Then I'm going to put a menu, and I'll put inside of this menu, I'll put a menu.item, one for the movies tab and one for the TV shows tab. So for the movies, I'll say, I shall make this self-closing like this. And then I'll just put at the item, I'll put a name to it, and it will be movies. Then I'll say it is active, and we'll have to actually put a state to determine which tab is active. And we also have to pass an onClick. Then I'm going to create another one of these for the TV show. And you guys will see how this works. TV shows like this. Then I'm going to create a state called active tabs. So I'll say active tabs and set active tabs. And this will be a string. We'll use the use state like this. And we'll just say that if active tabs is equal to, actually, let's not use this. Let's use display type like we've been using. So we'll say movies, and this will be of type display type. And we'll say that if active tabs is equal to display type dot movies, then this is active. And if you click on this, we want to set the active tabs to be equal to display type dot movies. We'll do the exact same thing for TV shows. I'll say TV shows and TV shows. And this is how it looks. Wait, it's not showing. It's literally not showing because I haven't added any styling yet. But it does. You can see that you can alternate between stuff over here. Let's actually add some of the styling. In the menu, I'll put it to be pointing, and I'll make it secondary. And I'll add a style to this, which will be a margin top of 50. And we should see that this now appears over here, right? It doesn't appear inside of the navbar. And you can see that it looks kind of cool. We can alternate between them and switch the tabs. Depending on which one we click, it should display different pieces of data. So now what I want to do is I want to display those different pieces of data. I want to start with a segment to wrap all of this around. And I want to basically inside of the segment, put over here a conditional saying if the active tab is equal to, just like this. If the active tab is equal to movies, then we're going to display some UI. If it is not, we'll display different UI. So I'll put a div for this for now. And this div will contain a header from semantic UI, and we'll say rated movies. Now I want this header to act as an h2 tag like this. And this is how it will look. Then what I want to do is I want to grab the data for those movies. Now, the display of that data will be very similar to how we did with column display. It will actually be basically the same. The only difference will be the fact that we will also display the rating that we gave for that specific movie or specific TV show. So what I want to do is I actually want to, first of all, grab the data, which we haven't done yet. And the data for grabbing rated movies and rated TV shows as a guest in a guest session, it exists somewhere over here. Wait, let me show guest session. Yeah, over here. This is the two endpoints we're going to be using. And all it requires is very simple. We're going to come inside of this thing and say query.ts, and then we'll say const or export. Actually, we'll just copy the query from here. Way easier. We'll just paste it here, and we'll call this fetch rated movies. Then this doesn't need any arguments, and the endpoint is similar to the endpoint from when we worked with adding a rating, because we do need to be authenticated using API keys instead of this thing over here. But the difference is we don't need any actual extra stuff for this endpoint. We just need to actually put the correct URL over here at the top. And the correct URL looks like this. I'll just paste it. Yeah, this is the correct URL. It basically grabs, we put the guest session ID over here. As you can see, we grab it from the local storage, and then at the end, we put the API key. And this should return the correct information. Now let's do the exact same thing for TV shows. So fetch rated TV shows, and we'll change this to, let's see, rated TV. And yeah, that's pretty much the only difference. Then over here, let's actually copy the use query hook so we don't waste any time. I guess by this time, if you're watching this video and working on this project, you're probably tired as well. But maybe you're not doing all of this at once like I'm doing. This is all one recording. So it is taking a while for me to do this. But I'll paste this over here and I'll import this. Actually import, yeah, I'll just import this. And then let's fetch rated movies. We don't need any IDs. We don't even need to do this because we don't need IDs. And then let me remove this as well. I'll say this is rated movies. And yeah, this is pretty much working. And I'll change this to rated movies. And this too, okay, we'll make a is loading rated movies as well. And then we'll copy this and duplicate it because we also have to do it for TV shows. So rated TV shows and is loading rated TV shows. Okay, and then this will be rated TV shows, and this will be fetch rated TV shows. So really cool. What we want to do now is display that thing. So inside of the rated movies, I want to put the column display component that we've actually created before. And we'll pass over here, the data for it will be, in this case, the rated movies data dot results, because remember, this returns the results. It's exactly how we did for inside of the homepage when we called the column display. And then we also need the display type. And obviously the display type will be display types dot movies, right? And then we'll do the exact same thing for if this is a TV show, but we'll change it a bit. So we'll say rated TV shows. And then this will be rated TV shows, and this will be TV shows. Now let's see how this looks. It looks nice, like we did before. It does show the correct information, which is something I forgot to say. It shows the movies that we've actually rated so far. And if you wanted to rate an actual movie or an actual TV show, let me give a rating for, I don't know. Let me give a rating for Big Brother. How does this have a rating of 10? This makes no sense. Okay, I'll give it a 7. And let's check out. Okay, it's successfully rated. If we go to TV shows now, it should display that information. So really, really cool. Oh, it actually changed to an 8.5 because I gave it a rating of 8. That's crazy. I definitely affected this rating. I think this only had like 1 or 2 ratings or whatever. But yeah, this is crazy. What we need to do now is we need to add the fact that we voted for this and add our actual voting. So I gave this an 8. I want to see over here that I gave this an 8 when I voted, right? Because what is the point of seeing this? So the way we're going to do this is no matter which one we're displaying, we want to display the rating at the bottom. So to do that, we need to come to column display and actually make a change in this. We need to ask if this is be a column display for rated stuff or non-rated stuff. So what I want to do is add something to the prop. So I'll say is rated, which will be a Boolean, which by default it's not expected to be passed. But if you pass it, it will be true, and by default it will be false. So down here at the bottom, actually I'll put it right over here. Put it below the card. We'll say, okay, if is rated, and I'll actually grab it from the props. So I'll say is rated. If, where was it? Okay, if is rated, then I want to basically display a label over here that will say the rating of the thing. So I'll say your rating is equal to data dot rating, and it will give me an error because if you recall, currently data is of this type over here, display data. So we actually add the rating as an option as well, so that it doesn't error for us. It literally does. What is it saying? Oh, okay. I just noticed it should be display data, not data. Okay, it works. You'll see that now. Oh, I haven't passed the thing yet. Let me refresh this. I haven't passed the state here. So I'll pass the is rated like this to make it true, and I'll pass it on this one as well. And you'll see that now, if I go to rated, it's giving me an error. Let's check the error. It seems like cannot read property undefined reading results. Huh, is it an error in our network request? Doesn't seem like it. I'm gonna check out what error this is, and I'll come back in a second. Okay guys, I figured out the error. The error was basically simple error handling and simple fetching logic, which was I wasn't checking to see if the data was loading, and if it is, I actually don't return this, I return a loader, so that if the data is loading, it shows that it is loading, as you can see. The reason why that was like actually causing issues is because while the data was loading, we were trying to access the results thing of the data, but the data wasn't done yet, so there was no results, so it was giving me an error. So if we check that if it's loading and not like we return this, then it will only return all of this and try to get the results when the data is actually done. So you can see it works now for both TV shows and movies, and we can also see our rating, right? This is really cool. You can see the rating we gave for each of the individual things, which is what we wanted to do. I want to see if I can change the color of it to green. Let's see if it looks good. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. I think it adds more style to it. But yeah, that's what we wanted to do. So now the last thing we want to be able to do is, first of all, let me fix the UI, which kind of has like this, it's kind of uneven, as you can see. And then finally, I just want to be able to log out from my account. So to fix the UI, it's actually pretty simple. We're going to come here to Visual Studio Code, and on our card, instead of column display, we actually just want to add a max height or a height to it, right? A standard height to each card. I'm actually going to give it 820, which I believe is what I put on the project that I put the demo. I have to close this, and you'll see that now all of them are standardized as the same height. And since we've used the same component for every single part of our project, it seems to be standard everywhere as well, which is pretty good. I really like how it looks. Now, let's make it such that you can log out. And that's the most simple thing we've done so far. We're going to go to our nav bar over here, and we're going to actually add functionality to check that. Now, how do we check that? Well, I'm going to say const is logged in. And this will be equal to the local storage.get item guest session ID. So if the user is logged in, then there will be something here. So I'm going to say not equal to no. Then we're going to just check, okay, if the user is logged in, then we want to display the auth. If the user is not logged in, then we want to display something else. So we'll say is logged in. We want to display, actually no, if it's logged in, we don't want to display we don't want to display the auth. We want to display the logout. And if it is not logged in, we then display the auth. This will be the logout button, and we'll make it such that it doesn't act like a link, but it acts like a button. We'll say logout, and this won't exist. What will exist though is an on click. Now we'll create a logout function over here. And this logout function is pretty simple. First of all, it will just remove that item from our local storage, as you can see. But not only that, it also should redirect us to the auth page, because when you log out, you need to authenticate again. So we will import from React.Done the use navigate hook, which we've used so far. We'll say const navigate equals to use navigate, and we're going to navigate to the auth page, just like this. And one thing I also want to do is I don't want to be able to go to the home page or any other page, to be honest, but I'll just do this with the home page so you guys can see how to do it. I don't want to be able to go to the home page if I'm not authenticated. So I'm going to say if local storage.get item gets session ID is equal to no, then I want to be redirected to the auth page. Now, how do I do that? Well, do I just call the navigate function like I did here? Well, no, because this isn't inside of a function. This is just an if statement, and we do need to return something. So in React.DOM, there's actually something similar to the use navigate, but in the format of a component called the navigate component. So I can just grab the navigate component over here, and inside of this, I would just say return navigate, and I'll navigate towards the auth link. So slash auth link. And we'll see that now, if I want to log out, I'll click log out. It will have navigated me towards the auth, and it should probably not have a guest session ID over here. And if I try to go to the home page, it doesn't allow me to. It forces me to stay in auth. Obviously, if I go to the rated, it will work, but it will break but it's all because we haven't added that. Just as a quick, since this won't actually change that much, let's do that. Just because it will give me a pet peeve. Like it's a pet peeve to have that thing on your project. So I'll just put this and I'll import this, and now it works as well. We get redirected every time we go to the rated page, and we can just log in. And every time we log in, we do get logged in as a different user. So the rated page doesn't exist there. You'll see it doesn't exist. But that's basically it for the project. Okay, everyone. So now that we've finished our application, let's start the deployment process, which we basically started earlier in this video when we set up our account and claimed our free domain with Hostinger. So to set it up, it's really simple. I have two plans over here that Hostinger gave to me. However, the process is very similar depending on which one you choose, so it doesn't really matter which one you actually chose to buy for this. I'm going to be showing you the business one real quick. Whichever one you have, you'll see something like this appear, and you can click on setup. When you click on setup, we'll see that there's a beautifully made guide for our setup. We will click on start now. It's going to ask if we want to create a new website or migrate from an existing website. In our case over here, we don't want to do either of them. We actually want to skip and create an empty website. Then it's going to ask us to select our domain. So since I got two free domains because I have two different plans, this is just my case, you will probably just have one. We only set up one, so we don't need to claim a free domain again. We already have it, and it's actually by default already here, PedroTech Movies, as the domain we're choosing. And if you don't have it over here, just click on this, and the option of the domain you created should be over here as well. So we're going to select this. Then we can choose the location. It's nice that Hostinger has a bunch of locations around the world. Since I am literally over here in Vancouver, I'll select the one that is closest to Vancouver, which is North America, Arizona. However, like Hostinger mentions, you should choose the server location which is the nearest to where your audience will be at, because you want it to be closer to whoever's using the website. So I'm just going to keep it like this. Domain is right, and I want to finish the setup. Just like that, it is pretty easy. It is finalizing the setup. As you can see, the loader is loading, but when it's done, we get these two options over here. One to view our website, which I'm going to click, but you'll see that there's absolutely nothing here. And one that is to manage our website, which will just bring us to the H panel for this specific website we just set up. Now, to put this website into our Hostinger platform, there's a bunch of ways of doing this, but the easiest way, in my opinion, is to just use the file manager over here. We'll click on this and we'll open up the files that are being served in our project, and you'll see that there is a folder called public_HTML. Here we have a default.php file. I want you guys to delete this file, just like this, delete it. And then we'll come to our project over here, and we want to generate what is known as the dist folder or the build folder, for depending on what you're using. In our case, we're using Vite. So we'll see in the package.json that to generate that file, we just have to run yarn build. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to run yarn build, and it's going to create an optimized build version for production inside of our project. And it is this folder over here. Now, all of our project is inside of here. So what we want to do is we want to reveal this folder in Finder, which is where we're going to be seeing the files that exist inside of it. We're going to open it up, and we're going to copy everything that is inside of here and just throw it inside of the website, just like that. You should see all your files here. If you don't, then it probably didn't work, and I would just try it again. But interestingly enough, if we go to where our website preview is, it's literally already working. See, the files are already being served. But not only that, you'll see that there's a message over here saying that the domain status of our domain will be accessible in 3 minutes. So in 3 minutes, we'll actually be able to see our website, not just as a preview, but also being served with its actual proper domain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in 3 minutes to show you guys the final product. Okay, everyone. So as you can see, the domain seems to be ready. So I'm just going to click on this. And as you can see, it opens up not actually on the preview, but on the domain that we got. And everything works. We can log in to an account. As you can see, the API seems to be working perfectly. Everything is exactly how it was when we had it locally. And yeah, it seems to have run perfectly. So there's a lot more that we can actually use with Hostinger. It's not just this. Obviously, it's not the point of the video, but I just wanted to point out, since in case you guys want to, you can see that you can run a speed test on your website. Ours has a performance score of 98%, which is pretty good. A lot of the stuff that I mentioned that you can do with Hostinger, you're able to do through this H panel that we have opened over here. You can see the total number of requests and much more, as you can see. And you can also set up the CDN. Like I said, my plan, the one I'm using right now, the business one, gives you one for free. But if you have the premium one, then you won't be able to do so. But I do recommend using it. It is already active, as you can see. But yeah, that's just one of the things I wanted to show to you guys. But that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe, because I'm posting less videos. However, I think I'm putting extra effort in every video I'm making, and I've been getting a lot of support from you guys, and I'm really enjoying it, because I did feel a little bit burnt out on YouTube. However, just seeing the support you guys provided me and seeing that I can just dial back a little bit but post higher quality videos allowed me to continue making these videos, and I'm really enjoying how YouTube is treating me recently. So I wanted to thank all of you guys for that. Also thank Hostinger again for sponsoring this video. They allow me to continue producing this kind of videos for you guys. So I wanted to give a massive shout out for them. Again, check out the link I have for Hostinger in the description. It will help support the channel in that way. But yeah, that's basically it. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.